And just like that, it's another slow start for a Penn State team.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host of this live reaction to Penn State versus Wisconsin, as Wisconsin is going to pull out all the stops. I know that the first half hasn't completely come to a close, but I thought I'd get a head start on the conversation, as it is now presently 10-7, and I will have updates in front of me, of course, with my, handy laptop here to stay up to date with the game. But we'll get a head start on reacting to the first half so that we can have a full conversation here. But it's another slow start, because I look at this game and Penn State's the better team. Penn State is the better team. It's showing up in the box score. They're able to move the football, but they aren't finishing drives. Drew Aller's 14 of 16 for 148 yards and a touchdown, and no egregious turnovers, right? They had the fumble technically on the fourth down QB sneak there. But he's completing almost 90% of his passes, and Penn State is currently trailing 10-7. Again, they could sneak back on the board here, as I see that Penn State is trying to move the football with a little bit of time left in the second quarter here. But Wisconsin, in comparison, is averaging 4.7 yards per play. Penn State is averaging 6.3 yards per play. Penn State isn't being overly penalized. They're not, like I said, there aren't any costly turnovers there, but it's the small mistakes. Penn State cannot get out of its own way with these slow starts. And I was fairly confident that Penn State would put these slow starts behind them, because you had the bye week, you've played 6 games, you've at least played fair competition. Is West Virginia perfect? Is USC perfect? Is Illinois perfect? No, they aren't these elite teams, but they will give you a scare. Maybe not Illinois in the case of Oregon here, but Oregon absolutely ruined Illinois' day. But Penn State should absolutely be up in this game, and they are not. Camp Randall is unforgiving. I think the environment has been incredible to this point. It jumps out at you if you're watching on the television. I'm sure if you're there, you notice it even further. Don't have the luxury to be there for this away game, but just the environment jumps at you. So Wisconsin is doing everything right, but it's these little mistakes. The 3rd and 10 plus, you can't give those up to Wisconsin when, again, Braden Locke is decent. I think he's an average game manager, but he cannot take over games. He's not an elite playmaker. The only elite playmaker that Wisconsin has on offense is Tawee Walker, and Penn State, for the most part, is doing a decent enough job containing him. But outside of that, Braden Locke is not on the same page with his receivers. The receivers for Wisconsin have been dropping passes left and right, or some of them are just errant throws. He's 9 of 20 to this point, and I see that Wisconsin's going to get the ball back here. So they have one final opportunity to see if they even put up more points in this case. But I am not overly concerned about Penn State here. I think Penn State is still the better team. I think they can come back. Similar situation to USC, and similar situation all season long, is that the second half adjustments are key for Penn State. New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. They're going to have to continue to make adjustments. I thought that, the bye week, you played in 6 games, but I guess it's going to take even more time than that. Of course, I am looking for your comments. I appreciate any feedback, your thoughts, as you are part of the conversation as well. Anthony says Penn State is a joke. They are not playing to the best of their abilities. I'm not going, never any domination. No, they are not. And Wisconsin's not a team that you're going to dominate, especially at Camp Randall. That's the fact of the matter, is that Wisconsin is peaking at the right time. Camp Randall, home field advantage like any other. Anthony adds this: Penn State will get demolished by Ohio State if they lose tonight. It's all over. It certainly makes it an uphill battle. I don't want to leave it up to the committee. You go 10-2, right? If we're going off of what Anthony's implying here, is that you assume that Penn State loses to Wisconsin here, and then Ohio State in the upcoming week, that, hey, 10-2 is because they're going to be the favorite in every game going forward, whether that's Minnesota, Maryland, obviously Purdue. Other than Ohio State, they are not going to be an underdog, so they should win all of those games. So 10-2, once again, hey, look at that. It's nothing that we've never seen before here. I just don't like that beforehand with the USC game. Penn State, I don't want to see Penn State lose the season like that, because they have all of the control. They control their own destiny here. Do not leave it up to the judgment of the committee, because then if they see that Wisconsin game, and depending on how you, right, and I'm speaking in strictly hypotheticals here, but if they go 10-2, Wisconsin and Ohio State being those hypothetical losses in this case, you just leave it up to the committee. Is that enough to get you a home playoff game? Probably not, because you don't get into the Big Ten championship. Okay, so now you went from in control of your own destiny to you're probably going to a really hostile environment as maybe a 9, 10, or an 11 seed. I don't think they missed the playoffs at 10-2, but not. It's only the first half. I remember this exact same point with the Penn State USC game, and that was 20-6 in Los Angeles. So Penn State, it's not like they haven't been in this situation before. Again, we're live reacting to Penn State versus Wisconsin. Just kind of getting, I went away from the box score here and trying to keep up with it, because like I said, I wanted to get an early start on the conversation. Okay, so they are in halftime, so it is 10-7 officially here. Let's talk about some more specific things here. Again, appreciate your comments. 2009 Griffin 1. Tired of watching Penn State garbage. Franklin should be fired. Again, it's only a 3-point deficit at halftime on the road. I get it. Penn State's the number 3 team in the country. I understand that. Wisconsin is a team that's still in, I don't want to call it a rebuild, but this is Penn State's year to make a college football playoff run, and they believe they are national championship contenders. Wisconsin is not in that case. Wisconsin is trying to play spoiler here. They got a really tough schedule ahead of them. They had no legitimate aspirations, right? Anybody can think and want that they want to go to the college football playoff, but Wisconsin knew that this was a season, okay, this is a turning point, whereas Penn State is in win now mode. You have Drew Aller has played a near perfect game. Really, Drew Aller is not the issue here. Talk about some of the specific stuff, right? Penn State cannot get out of its own way. Talked about the defensive miscues. You have a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 12, a 3rd and 15, and somehow Wisconsin is able to convert these a little too consistently. Then you have that botched, whatever that was. That it wasn't a fake punt. That wasn't by design. That was the punter juking out the free rusher. I can't remember who it was on that play there. And then picks up the first down. It's those kinds of things on that road environment that are really going to play into the momentum if you're not careful. You have to finish those drives, which is why it was so disappointing. I think Drew Aller to Julian Fleming can be a very reliable connection and could be Penn State's best connection offensive, aside from Tyler Warren, but in the wide receiver group. Not Trey Wallace, not Amari Evans, not Liam Clifford, and when Caden Saunders comes back too. Julian Fleming, if he and Drew Aller get on the same page, that can be a really good connection in the passing game. And to see Julian Fleming, who's done this for how long, played at Ohio State, and he's wide open. That's not even a contested catch. That's not, the defensive back isn't all over him. He's got 5-10 yards between him and the nearest defender. Maybe would have even scored on that play, and he drops it. Of all receivers to do that, if Tyler Warren would have dropped that, same kind of shock and awe there. But Julian Fleming, man, you got to make up for that, because that leads to the 4th down conversion that they don't get. That leads to the fumble, right? The 1 turnover for Penn State. And they miss out on points. Penn State should be leading in this game. Long story short, Penn State should be leading in this game. It should be 14-10. I'll give Wisconsin credit for driving down the field and going for it. I thought they would settle for the field goal there. Nope, they are trying to play spoiler, and that was my point. They're going to go into this, hey, we got nothing to lose. Bull in the china shop kind of mentality here. We can mess up Penn State's season. We still have, it's great that we're even here, but Wisconsin can play spoiler. Penn State still has everything in front of them, right? They have lofty expectations in this case. Talk about Nicholas Singleton, though. I'm talking about frequent negatives because, again, Penn State is trailing when they should not be. They should be up. They should be up 14-10 at this point. No excuses. But how about Nicholas Singleton, man? Is he 100%? He was questionable going into this game. There was a rumor floating around that maybe he doesn't play, and Nicholas Singleton has become that true all-purpose back for Penn State. Katron Allen is having a better game, I think, to this point. It's only been 5 carries for 29 yards. I have the stats in front of me, but and then a couple catches in the receiving game as well. But Katron Allen, at least in this first half, is showing signs that, okay, he's still there. He hasn't played the best to this point in the season. Now Singleton on the ground, pretty limited, 5 carries, 9 yards, but in the receiving game, one-handed catch in the end zone. He's got 3 receptions for 37 yards. Nicholas Singleton doesn't do that as a freshman. Are you kidding me? Sophomore season, even last season, 2023. Better as a receiver, but definitely not reliable. Dropping passes that he shouldn't be. And now Singleton is that all-around purpose back. He can do it all. Home run hitter with the lightning speed. He can run you over. He is technically the power back. He weighs more than Katron Allen, 226 pounds to 220. I know that's a difference of 6 pounds, but that's a lot in football. He is technically the power back. He can block, and now he can catch passes and be a reliable receiver. He's not just a last-second check down. He is a legitimate option. You line him up in the slot. So Singleton, just seeing him emerge and under the circumstances with whatever he's dealing with in terms of bumps and bruises, to play in this kind of game when there's no Quentin Martin available for whatever reason, running back depth is light in this game, and Singleton is giving it his all when he's more likely than not under 100% here. Return to the comments. Again, appreciate everyone joining me in this live reaction. Penn State trailing 10-7. To Wisconsin. Robert says, Tony Rojas is not who we thought he was. Tony Rojas is still, right, second-year player. I don't think he's having a perfect game, but he's definitely, at times, I think he's definitely shown up. I haven't seen him to... Penn State's been at least pretty, aside from a couple, big Tawee Walker runs, Penn State's defense has been, I would say, pass defense is average. Pass defense has been average. The run defense is doing a good enough job, but still, you can't give up with those plays, especially because it's not like Wisconsin's converting 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3 on those passing. They're converting, right? 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. That's unacceptable. You can't have that happen. Special teams is, I imagine, is not doing us any favors. Terrence Walker says that. Special teams, I've been disappointed with special teams, right? Question marks around, okay, Caden Saunders isn't the punt returner. Who's going to be? Zion Tracy at least gave a little bit of a flash there in the punt return game. Riley Thompson hasn't been as good this season. Now, granted, he hasn't been punting as much, so that's a good thing, right? You don't want your punter punting the ball. Kick return's been nothing for what, the past... Since I think back to Saquon Barkley, the kick return game has been honestly nothing since 2017. And that's saying something here. That's what, 7 years ago? So somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Maybe I'm being a little too, maybe I'm being irrational here. But I don't think the kick return game has offered anything for Penn State since Saquon Barkley was kind of that do everything for his Heisman campaign season, really. But Kickoff does its job for the most part, but special teams is definitely not a strength for Penn State. Out of the offense, defense, special teams, I think special teams is by far the weakest link in this case. Terrence adds this, and then field position. We will come back in the second half. Defense missing tackles and DBs have to know the ball is going to come out quick. I agree. The pass defense has not done its job to this point. Again, run defense is the same thing. Again, but it's all consistent, right? I have the confidence that Penn State can come back and win this game. I am surprised that they've only scored 7 points at this point in the game. They really should have at least 14, maybe even more. They're clearly the better team, but they are not finishing drives. They are not even finishing defensive stops. Penn State can't get out of Penn State's own way, and Wisconsin's going to take that. Ohio State in a week's time will make you pay for that. Can they clean it up? I would like to think so, because we've seen it time and time again. West Virginia, Illinois, USC. I don't know that Wisconsin is going to be any too much different from there, but you're going to get a team that thinks they're going to believe if this game stays close, if this is not at least a 10-point deficit going into the fourth quarter, Wisconsin's going to have all the momentum. They think they'll absolutely believe that they can pull it off. Kevin, thanks for joining the live halftime reaction. Defense is playing pretty well. The Julian Fleming drop was huge, and he could have walked into the end zone. Hopefully Drew is not hurt. We are. So I guess I must have missed that, actually, because I stepped away from the game, and people are saying to me that Drew Aller was shaken up. That definitely... I mean, I think we should finish that because, I'll get settled again and get my eyeballs glued to the TV for Penn State, Wisconsin's second half. If Drew Aller is banged up, Bo Pribula obviously doesn't give you the same thing that Drew does. However, Andy Kotelnicki was brought in for part of this reason. The 2-quarterback system that he ran for the longest time when he was at Kansas. So it's not like, okay, yes, the offense is going to have a different look, but I trust Bo Pribula to be able to run it confidently and competently. I have I'm not overly concerned if Bo Pribula were need to come in and, hey, Drew Aller's not 100%, let's cycle in the Bo package, even though it hasn't worked to this point. However, do we really think that Wisconsin is all week, is game planning, when Bo Pribula comes in for those 1 or 2 plays? If Pribula did have to lead the offense for the remainder of this game, it's going to be interesting. Certainly, it's going to keep me on the edge of my seat, but it's not, now Wisconsin's definitely winning. That's not my thought process here. Okay, in all honesty, Penn State's offense is anemic. Let Aller sling it. Is that a Drew Allen comment there? Because it's spelled Drew Allen. West Virginia fans, they got that one to stick. I'll give them credit for that. They got that one to stick for Drew. But he's not a bad quarterback. I'm serious. If you actually watch Penn State games, and even if you're just a box score checker at this point, and you don't even pay attention closely to Penn State games, if you say Drew Aller is a bad quarterback, he's mediocre, right? You're just either doing that to talk trash about Penn State, or you just don't like Penn State, or you don't like Drew Aller, or you're just trying to be funny, or you legitimately do not know football. You are not paying attention to football, because Drew Aller definitely has the attention of NFL scouts. If everything continues to trend this way, he will be a first-round pick. He is in my mind. 10-7 Wisconsin. A lot of comments. Appreciate everybody. Robert again. The great Penn State linebackers were good from the beginning. Rojas is going to grow into the position, just not good. It's one of those days, right? Tony Rojas has had good games. Kobe King actually was not that great in the first quarter of the season, but as now the past 3 games, Kobe King has been all over the place. You get hot and cold. Tony Rojas is picking the wrong game to go cold in this case, but it can happen again. Second half adjustments. If this team is known for anything, second half adjustments. We'll keep an eye on it here. Rick says Wisconsin's offensive line is playing well. They are. Wisconsin's offensive line is not a weakness. That is Paul Chris did a good job. I know this is Luke Fickell, year 2, but Wisconsin is still a prime ground for getting offensive linemen and for offensive line to develop at Wisconsin. Ask Nolan Rucci. I'm sure he'd. And I don't mean that as a negative thing. I genuinely mean that. Nolan Rucci probably knows that, hey, it was good for him to return to Penn State, but he definitely picked up on a lot of things with Wisconsin's offensive line development for sure. It doesn't seem like Penn State is trying to establish a ground game. Penn State, they're doing whatever Wisconsin's going. That's the nice thing about Penn State's offense, and Andy Kotelnicki is the offensive coordinator, is that they are not one-dimensional. They are not one-dimensional. You can throw the ball as many times. Drew Aller needs to be the quarterback there in that case, but they can throw a bunch if they need to. They can run the rock if they need to. Whatever Wisconsin's going to give them. If they're going to drop 7, run the football. If they're right, you just do the opposite of what Wisconsin's giving you. Whereas a year ago under Mike Yurcich, they couldn't. You were boxed in. They had no passing game, and that's why Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen had the sophomore slump, right? And it wasn't their fault. You were able to defenses dared Penn State to pass the football. They wouldn't, and that's why you didn't have a complimentary game. So Penn State this season can do whatever it needs to do. Let's pivot and actually talk about keys to the second half here, right? As we wrap up this live reaction. So Penn State's got to get at least, they got to make this a 20-10 game. They're right. Okay, let's say 2 touchdowns. If you can get 2 touchdowns in the third quarter and make this a 20 and make this a double-digit deficit, easier said than done. But Penn State needs to build the lead. Wisconsin is not primed to play from behind. They need to play in a close deficit or with the lead. You take away Tawee Walker, you win this game. You force Braden Locke into obvious passing situations outside of just third down. Right? Wisconsin's behind 11. They're going to have to pass the ball. Time is against them. Take the crowd out of it. That's really all Penn State has to do. Build a double-digit lead. Easier said than done. But look how quickly they responded against USC. I'm anticipating something similar, but there's additional factors here. Camp Randall's tougher to play in than the Coliseum. Drew Aller, if everybody is correct in telling me that, hey, Drew Aller got shaken up there at the end of the half, unfortunately, I missed that. I didn't want to see that. I don't want that to be the case anyway, but that also is a factor here. So defensively, take away Tawee Walker. Don't give up third downs. That's really it, because Wisconsin is not outgaining Penn State, but what they are doing is when they have opportunities, they are finishing drives. They are finishing stops. Penn State is not doing that. Wisconsin is finishing. Penn State is not. That is the difference. Penn State, in every other category, every other aspect, is the better team. But when Wisconsin, when given the opportunity to sustain that drive, they did it. Penn State should easily be up on this Wisconsin team. They're not. Hopefully the second half adjustments are made. I appreciate everyone checking out this live edition halftime reaction to Penn State versus Wisconsin. Again, 10-7. If you're not watching the game or if you're just catching up, it's over on NBC. Todd Blackledge is calling the game. So it's always great to see Todd Blackledge on the call. We'll also have a live post-game reaction too for Penn State versus Wisconsin. Talk 30 plus minutes on the show here and get a full recap of the game. And hopefully Penn State wins, comes out alive, and doesn't have to really, they need to be in the control of their own destiny. Do not leave this up to the committee. But right now, it's not as optimistic as it was in the beginning, but this team is poised to make those second half adjustments. So we'll see how they turn it around over in Madison, Wisconsin. Thanks for checking out this live episode of Locked On Nittany Lions. If you're not already, become an everydayer, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to join me for the post-game live reaction as well after the game.